confident that today you're going to see how you can create this with Adobe XD, with diagrams.net, which is another open source tool that is very easy to use, and even create this with Google Slides. And by extension, you're going to be able to create them with PowerPoint or similar tools as well. So please bear with me. I know you might have a lot of questions at the end, but as I was saying in the last class, there are a lot of resources out there for UX, for Adobe XD. So if you want to reinforce, of course, approach me, send me your questions. But if not, hopefully this gives you at least the basics to start exploring, right? On that end, thank you a lot for the questions that you guys added to the forum last week. We had several, so I appreciate that. I think it's important. And starting off with this, the first one, I was maybe looking a little more into getting more detail. The question was maybe a more structured approach could improve the understanding, and I definitely understand if something might not be explained properly. So it's totally fine. But if you can share more details of what you think it's not working, I think that can help me improve as a structure, or we can improve the material that's being presented. But again, thank you for your feedback. Another question we had last week is, do tools like Adobe XD provide design templates such as default combinations of color, shapes, or components? Short answer, yes. You can find free Adobe templates in the form of XD files all over the internet in places like xdguru.com. You can download ready-made pages, illustration components, tabs, and within the XD file, you're going to see even on most cases that colors are already assigned, you have components already made, so you only have to change the text for a button, for example, and it keeps the styles. So in short answer, yes, you have those resources. In a longer answer, XD also provides what we call kits from the most well-known design systems like Apple Material Design and Microsoft. All of you know or might know that, even from personal use, that they're very similar in interaction-wise, but UI-wise, they do change. Like the patterns and the components that all of these operating systems use are kind of different, but they're very standard across their products. So when you download these kits, these are documents that, again, have components, colors, and everything already defined according to that design system. So in the case of Apple iOS, for example, you're going to see the navigation pattern for mobile devices at the top, with the classic blue text and arrows to navigate back and forth, that kind of thing. So you have that. And in the case of other templates, you can also find more kits and templates shared by the Adobe community directly on the Adobe page. And they are done by either regular folk or resident artists by Adobe, which are a little more, I don't know, best practice, if you may. And along that line, you also have video tutorials that can help you with anything actually that you want to build. So it's pretty interesting. And even one more thing, there are also plugins. For instance, there's a plugin for XD that's called Quick Mockup. It gives you ready-made templates. There are not a lot, but at least they give you composition templates. They give you, they have colors and things like that, but you have like 5 or 6 at the moment. You have 5 or 6 templates that give you an about us page. They give you sections for contact. They show you forms and things like that. So within XD, you can drag and drop things to build your own websites, if that makes sense. Okay, so are we going to work only with the free version on this workshop, or we will get access from our WebCreek email? Okay, the goal of this workshop is to get started on the concepts as we've been discussing and the basics of the tools like Adobe XD. So yes, for this workshop, you can download the free version of Adobe XD with your company email. And actually that, if you read the email that we sent, that account is free permanently. The only thing you won't be able to do is share more than one link when you're publishing your prototype or your document, or use additional features like live collaboration. For example, one of the latest features that Adobe added is that if you have obviously a full account, multiple designers can go into one document and work at the same time. I personally don't think that's entirely useful, but those are like additional things that you would find when you would have an official an Adobe account with the Adobe XD in full. But for the purposes of everyone learning sitemaps, user flows, and basic prototyping, the free version is more than enough. This one is in Spanish, so I appreciate that as well. Out of curiosity, can you connect Adobe XD to a database? No, not for now, because Adobe XD is not an actual system. I mean, when the stuff you build are not actually real, right? We're talking about simulation, so they don't really work with dynamic content. But there are a couple of plugins that I know that will help you, I don't know, create tables or visuals that are drawn from a spreadsheet. That in a way is dynamic, but it's not like you can create a quote unquote database and work your prototypes around it, at least not for now. This was a more advanced question, but I'm happy to answer. How can I integrate Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, and XD? For example, if I edit a photograph in Photoshop, put it into an infographic in AI, can I then import the project into XD? Or do I have to export it first into JPEG and then import that JPEG into XD? So you can do all of that in 3 different ways. First of all, if you want to have everything separate or joined, you can use Adobe Creative Cloud libraries that allows you to add elements to a library that's shared all across applications. This means that you would have sort of like you can have access to a window that's called a library, and no matter you are in Photoshop, Illustrator, or XD, you can drag and drop things there, and you have them available across all applications. In the second case, you can open. Actually, in the particular case of Photoshop, you can open a Photoshop file with XD and have everything editable. If you have layers separated with text, the shapes for your buttons, the images, you name it, you can open that with XD, and you should find that editable. And at the end, you can always drag or copy things from one app to another. Actually, that's what we tend to do most at WebCreek. If I have Photoshop open, I just drag the image right from the artboard directly to XD, or copy vectors from Illustrator. So it works either way. And within this presentation, I'm adding a video that will show you these 3 ways that you can import and connect the applications seamlessly. So hopefully that helps. Okay, so for this session topics, we're gonna go through sitemaps, user flows, and how can we make these with Adobe XD, diagrams.net, and even Google Slides. Okay, so let's start off with sitemaps. What is a sitemap? Just to start off by saying, before the definition, actually, the sitemaps are a truly important deliverable, even before you start working at all. For example, there have been cases where UX designers work with the sales department, and in order to understand the hypothesis of the product that a client is trying to produce with us, it would be very helpful, for example, for salespeople to understand how sitemaps work, maybe build their own, draft some things in order to get estimates, for example. So this is why we're learning this specific deliverable. Sitemaps, in a nutshell, are hierarchical diagrams that show the information architecture of a website. It gives you a visual representation of the site's organization and how different sections are linked together. There are sitemaps that can be done not necessarily visually. Whenever you're working on website development, for example, you can have a sitemap displayed on a spreadsheet, and you can see the relationships there. But classical sitemaps, or at least the ones that are more infamous in the UX world, are visual. Yeah, I mean, you see the hierarchy of blocks connecting one level to another and through each other. So when we create these, they're created early in the UX design process after the research phase. Whenever we get information from the client, from users, from the industry, from competitors, then we start to analyze them, and we start to think, okay, if we want to build a website with an X goal, then we need to organize the content in Y mode, you know? So how do we do this? These are pages that are linked from high-level categories to specific pages. We're going to see this in a minute. And why we do this? Sitemaps show a full picture of a digital product so you can make better design decisions. So imagine we're creating a sitemap for an e-commerce website. For this website, a section can be a product category, while the subpage can be a details within each item. So again, sitemaps help identify where content should sit and show the relationship between different pages. In the case of the image you see right here, we're talking basically about a library website. It's called booksite.com. So what we want to do is just group the information according to their hierarchy and their category. So for example, we have a really broad category that's called academic. And within that, we have two subsections, two subcategories, which are called student area and faculty area. And each one has even more levels. The student area, for example, has refunds or textbook lists. And even within textbooks lists, you can have sorting by author if that is in fact a page. So this is how you organize information basically, right? And this can come from all sorts of places. As we were saying, ideally, you can have user research that will make you give additional thought to what the business requirements from the client are coming in. That is not always the case. But let me show you this example again. For example, the client said, we're a small law firm and we need some digital presence. Something simple. A brief history of the company and our awards, our services, a play to publish news and opinions, individual lawyer profiles, and of course, a way to contact us. But when we were researching through their potential audience, right, we found out that people or companies that need lawyers focus a lot on the human aspect. Who will defend them and what is their trajectory? They're usually urged to find help, so they like to talk to someone directly. So there's already a lot of information that we can start to interpret. And in the case of the sitemap, the client is obviously giving us an outline of the content and the pages that they wanna have. But first of all, we can draw the structure from here, but maybe we can add some meaning or more intention to that structure with the research findings. So for example, if we build a basic sitemap, and by the way, this sitemap that you're looking at here was built with Google Slides. So we're going to see that in a minute. For example, for law.com, we start off with the homepage. We always start off, every website in the world starts off with the basic page, which is the homepage. And then you would have an additional level of pages that you would explore afterwards, right? But they're at the same level of importance, if you may. Usually, this is the navigation menu you see on most websites. So when we were reading through the requirements, they were saying like, okay, I need a brief history of the company and our awards. Okay, so that's an About Us page, and we can have an additional page to show the awards. So, but it's together, right? They're the same thing. We want to show our services. Perfect. They didn't say they want a specific page for services, but we can suggest that actually. That's good. Whenever websites have more content, it's beneficial for SEO purposes and digital positioning, if that makes sense. So we can say, okay, we do more research and we find out they provide civilian, environmental, and business services. And each one of those has a page, but we start off with the service page first, right? And we also have a place to publish news and opinions for that. It's basically a blog, right? And maybe we do additional research and we find out that they publish news, but they also publish opinion editorials, like, I don't know, what happened when Biden won the presidency, or what happened, and I don't know, something related to politics, to economy, and how that is seen from a legal perspective. Then you would have an additional level, the deepest level in this case, which is an article, which is a separate page, but it's related to this connection here. We have individual lawyer profiles. We can represent that as our team, and each page will have an individual profile. I'm saying here it's by 12 because maybe there are like 12 employees. So we're going to have 12 pages for this. And in the case of contact us, we have a dedicated page for that. And but then when you see the research findings, the research and the people we interviewed said that they want to look at people, right? They want to see faces. They want to see who's going to be the one defending their case, right? So this is why the order that we're placing this on the potential navigation menu is that we're putting our team first. Actually, if we were guided by the client requirements, this was close to last, before contact us. But in the way of how we read things and the way how a user would find things according to our research, I think it's more important to show them, the trajectory, the human aspect first, and then the trajectory. And this means showing the team and showing the awards, maybe. And then you would explore more and see the services and the blog. And these are small ideas, but they definitely help when users are actually using this. And for example, we can even dive even deeper, and this is just an additional idea outside the sitemap, but this is just something to think about. For example, if the research also told us that they are actually urged to find help as soon as possible and they want to talk to someone directly, let's say we're designing this contact us page. If that is what research is telling us, maybe I'm mistaken if I want to have people fill in a huge form to contact the company. Maybe I can have one, but I should prioritize giving them a huge telephone number or email address that they can use directly instead of filling out a form, for example. And those are the kind of things that will kind of drive the design from here on out. Okay, so we have an exercise. Again, I wish we had the time that you guys can work it with me at the same time and answer questions. But I'm just going to lay out a user story that comes directly from the client, and we're going to build this sitemap with XD, with diagrams.net, and with Google Slides. Okay, so the sitemap exercise tells us, the client told us, I'm a baker and I need to create a simple website with a powerful homepage filled with nice pictures. From there, I want to guide people to find individual recipes per category, like cakes, pastries, and more. I also teach, so I need a dedicated space for my videos and the page that talks about me, and for sure a contact page. As you can see, this is all over the place. This doesn't necessarily give us every answer, but we can start interpreting those, okay? So I'm actually going to start with Adobe XD and trying to work out the sitemap here. Actually, for everyone's benefit, I have opened here diagrams.net and plain white Google slide. And we're going to do the same sitemaps here. And you're going to see actually that, for example, diagrams.net is by far the best to do this. Obviously, when you're talking about high fidelity prototypes, which is what we're going to do next week, maybe Adobe XD has an edge. But for example, with this tool, and even I've seen clients actually do prototypes with both of these tools, or even wireframes, So I just want to give you the tools and the basics so you can understand the potential, and then you can take it from there. But let's start off with XD. So I created this arbor. Don't mind how it looks. So it's just to give you an example. Just imagine that you're starting off with a blank slate. You always are, because whenever you land on XD, you remember you have the ability to create artboards. So I started off with a 1920 by 1080, which is a white screen layout for a screen. And yeah, I'm adding here sort of like the persona that we are working with, and it's the same thing we read from the client. Okay, so in the case of the sitemap, what I want to do is just start creating these blocks, right? So I want to have the main block, which is the home page. And with that, I'm going to go to the left panel, which shows me the tools. And whenever I click on the square, for example, I'm going to just drag it and create square. And on the right, if I want, I can. There are a lot of properties, but let's focus now on the color and the size of the border. Right? We have something that's gray, and maybe I want a different color. Maybe I want to change the fill, which I change it here to sort of like a green. I'm going to have the green border as well. Okay, and maybe I want it to be bigger. Got it. So I have a square. Now I want to add a text that says homepage. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to drag again. I'm going to type in homepage. Okay. I'm going to go to the right. Again, I have similar properties. Now with this is a text, I have type of font, size, and everything along those lines. I'm not going to change the color. I think I'm good with black. And what I'm going to do is just one small thing. You don't need to pay a lot of attention to this, but there's a property here that says auto width. As you can see, there's a bounding box to this text. So the auto width is just going to adjust it to make it fit. Then I drag it to the center. XD has guides as a default. And as you're approaching shapes, for example, I can already see this is aligned vertically and horizontally, which is very cool. So maybe this box is a little tall. And whenever I select it, I have these anchor points when I can change scale, right? So I just want it to be a little less tall. I'm going to align it as well. Then I'm going to select both by dragging just the selection tool, which is the standard. Whenever you're doing things and you go out, it goes to the standard tool, the selection tool. And as you can see, there are two elements here. We're going to group them with Control G or Command G. And you're going to do one last thing, which is useful. We're going to go to the properties panel of this grouped object, which now has different properties. And we're going to check it here and add automatic padding. So this, don't mind about the term, about the specifics. What this is going to allow you is to have the same spacing throughout anything you write whenever you're editing. So I just double-clicked on the group, I double-clicked on the text component, and then I'm adding again homepage. Okay. So this is the highest level, and now I'm gonna click on Alt while I'm dragging the object so I can copy it. And we're going to create a new level of content. And then I'm going to double click on the element because now that it's grouped, I need to just select the background. So I'm going to double click on the area here. And I'm going to change the color to just make this, let's say yellow or orangish. Okay. I'm not going to change the font or the color. And remember that the group still stays on with the padding. So I'm now going to change the first category, which is cake recipes. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing. Alt, keep pressing Alt and drag the element. I'm going to create another category, which is, I don't know, pastries, pastry recipes. Okay. Do one more and say, I don't know, ice cream recipes, whatever, right? Where this information you will obviously get from the client as you're analyzing together. Maybe you're missing certain things, and there are other resources that you can use to understand these things. But usually with simple websites, and especially from one-timers like Juliet in this case, they have things clear and you can start working on that end. Remember that she told us that she also teaches, so we need maybe a dedicated page for bakery lessons, right? But they're at the same level of that category because it's a different page, and I want for people to see this on a navigation bar and make their pick of what they want to drill down. So, then a page that talks about her, we can call this about. And you push all of these to the right. And then we can create one more that says contact, right? So now we have the second level of hierarchy that started off from the homepage. This is sort of like the main categories that we have. And from each of the category, the recipe categories, we're going to find potentially the recipe, the individual recipe, right? Sorry there. And I want to change the color here as well, so you can denote that this is actually something different, right? And I'm going to copy this, I'm going to copy this, and place it below the categories because each of these is going to have an individual recipe, right? So if I go to the bakery lesson section, maybe this comes up when I keep talking to the client, I'm going to have, I don't know, curses, right? I can pick a curse for, I don't know, let's say I'm going to create another level. That's about, I don't know, bakery. Maybe I want to change this one as well, just so we have it super clear. Okay. I have curses for bakery, I have curses for ice cream, and I have curses for pastry. Right? And the cool thing is that maybe each of these curses has even an individual page that has, I don't know, bread, has milk ice cream, or whatever, you know, like the internal categories that you would see within each one of these. Piece of pastry, I don't know, maybe. What's an example of a pastry? Maybe a cinnamon bun. Okay. I'm going to change the color of these, but I made a mistake because now I didn't make this a component. Don't hear what I'm saying, but I made a mistake here because then I'm going to need to change each one individually. So what I'm going to do is just move these around, make copies with this new style, and just paste the text. Okay. Okay, and the About Us page actually doesn't have any more content than the one that you're going to see there, and the contact page neither. Okay, so you actually have all your pages here. You have all the levels of hierarchy, and what you're missing is just connecting them through lines. So this is a pain in XD at the moment. They don't have any tools to do this very quickly, but I usually use the pen tool, which is when you select it, you can just put a point of connection and you can draw things. And at a certain point, you can either choose to close actually the shape, and you can change the color, the fill. But if you don't connect them, you're gonna see that maybe the pen, I'm gonna use it just to lay down some of the structure here, changing color, making it bolder. And this is not very standard, as you can see. And this is, I don't know, there are plugins and tools that sort of do this, but as you will see in a minute, diagrams and Google Slides have even better ways to do this. So I'm just going to copy the shapes here. Oh, sorry, these are not connected. These are connected just per category. Because remember, if I do this kind of connection, I could potentially say that, hey, those individual pages come from the pastry recipes, but that is not the case. Okay, so, but in this case, for courses, we do have that single path from the bakery lessons page. Right? And again, as you don't need to use colors, really. This is something that we tend to do just to denote hierarchy and separate the elements visually. But you can get away with this by doing it in black and white, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so that's it. This is our basic sitemap. You can extend on this. You can keep working with the client in terms of understanding how things. But for example, whenever you, for the sales representatives, this is important. Whenever you guys are working with UX designers in order to build this, these are already, you can account for the amount of pages that you can work on. You know, these are already pages that we're going to need to design. Maybe when we're talking about individual recipes, they are the same page, you know, they have the same format, so we don't need to design them again. So those kind of findings are going to help everyone understand how the product is structured, how many pages we have to work on, the workload, and ultimately estimate the amount of work. Okay, so this is done in XD. And I'm going to jump to diagrams.net, and I'm not going to go through the entire thing, but I'm going to show you how to build it. So on your left, you can see right off the bat, you have a selection of elements that when you select them, it immediately adds, and you have all the same anchor points you saw in XD, and you can actually size them the way you want it. So whenever you're doing this, you can actually type right away, which is amazing. And you can start to do the following. I'm going to copy and paste the elements. You remember we had, what we had? Cake recipes, pastry recipes, Ice cream recipes. That's as far as we're going to go for the example, so in the spirit of time. Okay, so the really cool thing about this is, you remember when we were connecting this with the pen tool, which was a pain? Well, this tool, for as a default, has some arrows from the shapes that you create that you can connect automatically. Let me pull this down so it's a little more visual. Right, so you can connect this here, and you can choose to connect it again and again. Right, and from then on, you can keep doing the same level of detail. Let me check what this is crooked. There we go. That's good enough. Remember, we're not trying to make these perfect. We're trying to make these valuable, that make things clear. So we want to have the article again. You can show in the box. We can, sadly, the only thing here is that the Alt button doesn't work great, but you can still copy and paste, which is good enough. You can drag them, and you can build your sitemap right away. And you still have on the right, similar to XD, you have the properties. You can change the colors very quickly. In fact, you can have your sitemap ready to go. Okay, and we're going to do basically the same thing here, and it works pretty much the same. You have shapes on Google Slides, so whenever you're creating squares or documents or whatever, again, you can type in directly. You can align it, and then we're going to create our second level, which is, I don't know, recipe number 1. I forgot the name, so I'm going to do it as fast as I can. Recipes number 2, recipe number 3. Right? Then we're going to have the article or recipe, right? That doesn't matter at this point. And then I can connect them with the connectors. Right next to the shape, you have the symbol line, and you can have the elbow connector. The only thing about these is that they don't have arrows. Sadly, I'm not sure why, but you can use them to just do the connections one by one in the same fashion. You're not dragging them from the box, but you can start off from the anchor points that you see, and you can keep on connecting things. Okay, so that's it. Oh, and just again, as you might have seen, you can change the colors here. This is very basic. You can do all sorts of things, so it's definitely helpful. As you can see, it's the same thing applied on different tools. And again, I'm not trying to encourage you to do things prettier by using colors and things like that. Again, if you present this to at least to a team, it makes sense. It's helpful. It gives you valuable information as is. You don't need to get fancy. You just need to commit to the goal, which is organizing information, making sense out of things. And this is why any of these tools are very helpful for you. Okay, so and just to confirm what we were saying early on in this session is you're good with this. I mean, you can use either application to do it. So let's go right ahead with the user flows. User flows are basically a path that shows you how user takes certain decisions through the product to complete a specific task. This path is divided into a series of steps that user takes from the entry point towards the final action. So we create this after the research phase as well. And they're aligned actually with the sitemaps in order to understand certain things. And how? It's basically a diagram that uses a set of symbols and connecting lines to make sense out of things. And why we do this, it helps teams understand visually how each user will use the product in order to reach their goals. It facilitates the alignment of business and user goals with the proposed solution. So user flow elements are very, very basic, at least the ones that you should care about. There are, developers know about this. There are dozens and dozens of shapes and things that you can use to enhance the technical aspects of a user flow, but the very basic user flows are all about this. The ovals or circles, you can use the circle as well, that denotes the start and end of things. Rectangles to denote a process or action. And a decision is represented as a diamond, and ultimately the arrow that connects things together, okay? So let's see another example. On the users module, we want to be able to, let's say the client says this, right? On the users module of our application, we want to be able to add, edit, and remove users from the system. The research finding told us that according to the HR users, according to HR, users require being added with their full name, email, address, phone number, and role. So for example, the research findings doesn't help a lot at this point. We can add that level of detail if we want, but for the user flow in terms of the basics of the flows, we don't really need this. This is something important while we're defining requirements for this specific action of adding users and what the fields need to be added. But the very basic interpretation of this is the following. So we start off with the users module, and we have three options at the same level. We can either add a user, edit a user, or remove a user, right? So whenever we're adding users, we can enter the user information according to the findings from the HR department. And we get to a diamond where we can confirm the addition or we don't. So if we don't, we go back to the enter user information where you can exit and go back to the main user's model screen. But if you confirm, the user is added to the list and the process ends. Whenever you're editing a user, it's very similar. You're not entering, but you're editing user information, and the decision that you want to make is, do you want to save changes? No, you go back. Yes, the user is updated, and it's the end. If you want to remove a user, you don't need to change the information. You just need to confirm if you want to do that or not. You're giving users a confirmation that, are you sure you want to remove this user? If it's a no, you go back to the users module. And if yes, the user is removed from the list and the task is ended, right? So this is very important. As you can see, it helps everyone understand from the development side, from the testing side, from the business analysis standpoint. You can understand how this specific feature about managing the user module works, okay? So again, this diagram you see here was built with Google Slides. So you can do that here as well. And we have a user flow exercise. I think we're running a little bit out of time, but I'm going to go through this as quickly as I can. Maybe in order to leave room for questions, I'm just going to do it in XD, but it's pretty much the same thing. As a user, I want to log into a mobile application by using my credentials. If I don't remember my password, I want to have a way to reset it. If I'm a new user and don't have any credentials, I want to create an account and be able to access the application. Okay. Actually, let's do it in diagrams.net because it might be the easiest access for you all, but now that you know how to construct things in XD, it might be easier, right? So as you can see, that now that the orientation is horizontal. Now we're going to start. We're going to go to the, I don't know, logging. Oops, sorry that. Logging sign up screen. Okay. Now I have to make a decision. Do I have credentials? User has credentials. If it's a yes, dashboard. Oops, sorry. The start should be a circle, actually, if you remember. Okay. And then we can end the process. But what happens if you don't have any credentials? We're going to connect this in a bit. What happens if you don't have any credentials? You can have, I think, both options, two options if you don't have any credentials. You either don't have an account or you forgot your password. This is coming from what the user story told us, right? Forgot password. Okay, so I'm gonna, sorry, I'm not the best on this tool, but I'm gonna do my best. maybe this way. There we go. Yep. And we can keep on connecting things. Okay. And you can add elements such as text. And what we want to do for the diamond is we want to tell this that this is the no path. And this is the one above is the happy path to access the application, which is yes. Okay, so we connect these, we start, and we can end. Okay, so if you don't have an account, you need to go into the sign up process. All right, and whenever you're doing this, you can add user information. This might be longer because you get an email and then you have to confirm your account. So then you're going to be able to go to the signing process again, where you actually have credentials. I apologize, it looks horrible, but hopefully it makes sense. And then you can end by actually adding the credentials and having the process right then and there. Okay. So if you forgot your password, you need to go through the recovery process.
Pedro, a little
Yes.
trick here. If you're gonna click right on the arrow, it will allow you to select the next figure you want to create. So if you go to confirm account email and click on the arrow, yes, here. Oh,
Okay.
it should okay, click again. It should allow you to select the next one you want to create. Okay, maybe in Mac it's not working like that.
Yeah.
Okay. But actually in the Windows it works like that, so you can like select that you want to create a next like a diamond or whatever, and it adds.
Right. That's super interesting. Yeah, as you might know, I'm accustomed to do this super personalized here in XD, but yeah, if you give a little time, sorry, this app is jumping. If you give a little time, yeah, as Tatiana was mentioning, there are a couple of tricks that, I mean, this application in particular is really responsive and really easy to use. And again, this looks awful, but I think it holds the basics of what we're trying to do with sitemaps, okay? And going back to the presentation, yeah, I think we have some 10 minutes for questions. I'm really sorry I had to go this fast, but I wanted to cover as much as possible and give you as much information as I can. So hopefully everything was understood. And I don't know, does somebody have any questions at this point?
Pedro, I have a question. So I saw that for every action you need to create a box. But what if you go to a page and you wanna, I don't know if this is a great example, but is there any situation where you have to do two actions at the same time? And if so, how do you portray that in this graph?
What do you mean two actions at the same time?
For example, you have the action to, let me see, edit and create something. I don't know, like you edit the name of a, oh, okay, this is a good example. So you edit the name of, I don't know, of a document, let's say, on that page, and then you save that edited name. So those are two actions that you're performing at the same time. But I don't know if you need to put that as two boxes, or is there a way to put like in one box, edit and save as one action? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, but I think it's the same thing that we're looking at right here. And that would be, I would argue that you're not necessarily as a user doing two things at the same time. You're always doing one. You're either selecting a button, you're confirming, you're reading, you're downloading, you're exporting. So in this case, I think it's what you're saying, because we want to edit the user, and the first thing I do is not save changes at the same time I'm editing information. I'm actually editing the information first, and then I'm confirming that this is something that needs to be saved on that record, so the user is updated. So either way, I think I understand your question, but I think the more detail you can give to these sitemaps are usually the best. I mean, you don't have to go crazy in the sense that, okay, the action is I look to the navigation bar, I browse through the items, I select something, I explore. No, these boxes and these decisions are what I call interaction points, where user actually interacts with the system doing something very, very specific. In this case, if I go to user module, I select the option edit user, then I select I actually edit the user information, then I perform a change, and the result is user updating. Another thing to note here is that I'm also adding colors. I think you don't need to necessarily. That's why you have different shapes for the user flows and user diagrams. But I think color helps in the sense sometimes in visualizing where things start and end, what are maybe actions, what are decisions, what are statuses. But hopefully I answered your question, Julie.
Oh yeah, you did. Thank you. Thank you, Pedro.
Thank you. Someone else?
No, more than a question, is actually later I'm going to have a double check of the presentation just to have everything more clear.
Sure. But if you have something that maybe was not super clear, I'm happy to answer. We have still 7 minutes, so go ahead if you want.
No. It was more like on the basic commands of Adobe XD, but I think that there are like we can like then after that go for.
If no one else doesn't have any questions, we can dive into that with no problem.
Oh yeah, that would be great.
Does somebody have a question about the presentation? Maybe. Okay, I think we're good. So this is Francesco, right?
No, it's Jonathan.
Oh, Jonathan. Sure. What do you want to know?
For example, the resizing, the changes to the
shapes?
to the shapes, exactly, like bringing pictures to the foreground, to the background, all like basic things.
Yeah, the good thing about Adobe, I think, is that they are like they use what I call interaction patterns that are known across. They're pretty much known to everyone. So, for example, if you have a square and you have a circle, right? But you wanna have the circle in the background. You just you right click, and you either have shortcuts or you have the option to actually send it to back and do those kinds of things. The other way you can do this is if you see these elements either grouped or separated, there's a layer section here that you can either also use to move things around and put them in certain places. This is particularly helpful sometimes for buttons, for images, and things like that. So you can do that that way. Another trick that I would add on top of that is that whenever you're creating things, you don't necessarily get to change them right away. So there are two things you can do. For example, if you want to create a perfect circle or square, let's choose the circle. If I drag it without pressing anything, it will have a weird shape, right? But if I press Shift, it's going to be perfect while you're dragging it. And even more so, if you're creating more things, again, you're adding color, you go to the property section, and you're going to have here the transform panel, where you can, again, if this is not locked, as you can see, it's going to change unproportionally. It's going to change only the width, right? Let me go back. But if I select the shape and I choose the lock, I can increase size, reduce size, proportion. There are a lot of things you can do in terms of properties, but for example, those are the kind of things that kind of help. And also, let's say you want to create the classic red, yellow, green button from Mac, right? I'm gonna copy. I'm gonna change. I'm just gonna deorganize them, so I'm gonna show you another property. Okay, we have these two, right? So as you can see, they're not super organized. So what I need is to align them. So I'm gonna drag, select all the shapes, and go at the top of the properties panel, and I want to have them either aligned to the top or aligned to the center. If I align to the top, it's going to take into account the element that's at the top, which in case it's, in this case, let's do it more dramatic. In this case, it's the red, so it's going to align to that. If you chose center, it's going to center in relation to all three elements at once. And if you want to divide them in, like distribute them horizontally, which is something that we want because we have a lot of space here, you can do that here as well. Another cool thing about Adobe is that it has an automatic responsive resize. This is an advanced feature. It's helpful when we're doing high fidelity prototypes, but in this case, for example, it takes into account the separation that we distributed equally, and it allows you to expand on the size, on the space evenly, and it gives you the chance to do those kinds of things. But yeah, that's it. I would encourage you to explore doing shapes, transforming them with the properties. And next week, we're gonna see a little about doing a high fidelity prototype. We're actually gonna use the logging sign up exercise to do the actual prototype. And you're going to see a couple more things in order to connect them on the prototype mode and actually share your link to share the prototype with someone else. And hopefully answered your question, Jonathan. And,
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. And does anyone else have any questions? I had a lot of questions last week, which I thought it was excellent.
Okay. I think there's one on the chat.
Let's see. Most of the time, we include sitemaps in our commercial proposals. Are there any WebCreek standards in terms of color or font that we should use to create them? Ooh, excellent question. No. and I think what everyone cares about from the aesthetic standpoint is that it's organized, readable. Obviously, if you have things that are looking like this, it's confusing, it's not helping anyone. I personally think this is enough, but if you want to go the extra mile and work with the styles of our brand, there is a brand book available that has the colors, the fonts that we use at WebCreek. So if you commit to those, I'm sure things are going to go great and you won't have a problem. So for example, here, what I want to do is I want to change this to EXO, which is our official font. I want to change that to the corporate blue. I want to have the background be white, and I want to also have the border be blue. This already looks good. Or maybe you want to have the background white and the letters white. This already looks good. So those are the basics, honestly, but that would be doing like extra bonus for the work that we need to do with sitemaps, really. Thank you, Ale, for the question.